Carol, can you just wait 1 second? Thanks. Becky, hi.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. So before you got here, I just let folks know that you're essentially going to sort of show us what the amendment looks like as drafted. We're not going to go through every last verbal detail of it, but I think to just get the gist of the beautiful redundancy of a fee bill.
Okay. So Becky Wasserman, Legislative Counsel. Should I bring up the bill now to share it? So this, this is draft 1.2 of the amendment to H 479, which is the T-bill. And this amendment is striking out from the T-bill the last two sections, which are sections on the AOT positions and the effective date. And then it's going to be inserting in after that all of the new fees. And then at the end of the fees section, it will be putting back in the transportation positions and then the effective date. So in between where the new positions and the effective date are will be a number of sections of fees. They are broken down into category with the reader assistance headings. And so you can let me know how much detail you want, but we can just start off with section 35 as an example for the enhanced driver's license fee. Statute has that fee set in 23 VSA section 7, subsection D. Current law is $30 for that fee. That struck out, and $36 is the proposed change.
And as Chris told us, he kindly built the spreadsheet so that's in the same statutory order.
Right, so this should be following, right. And so section 36 of the bill, of the amendment, under the Department of Motor Vehicles, are fees on certain registrations. I'm like, I'll bring up the spreadsheet so I can speak to this better, but you'll see is the listings of 1 through 4 registrations, $8 is changed to 10. Certified copy of registration application, 8 to 10. Sample plates is changed from $18 to $22. For lists of registered dealers, transporters, periodic inspection stations, fuel dealers and distributors, that is $8 to $10 per page. And then there are a number of fees related to certified copies of certain reports and documents, and those are listed here, ranging from the periodic inspection sticker record is going from $8 to $10, individual crash report, 12 to 15.
Anyone have any questions about the basic construct that we are operating with here? Thank you, Jim. I know you've seen many of these before. Okay. Is there anything else that you want to discuss in here?
I think this was discussed that there are some, and
we talked about the fact that there are some that aren't changing because of policy reasons.
there are some that aren't changing because of policy reasons, and then there are some sections that would be affected by another bill, S99.
Yes.
And so those would just have to be, followed to make sure that everything is in line in the two bills.
Thanks. Any questions from anyone? Okay. I am, as I said earlier, I think there's a question about effective dates and the DMV's ability to do this, given their updated IT system and how, and so.
Do you want me to scroll down to the effective date without Bob Dizzy?
Yeah, and so my understanding is that they have a new IT system that's going to be online this fall. If we put an effective date of July 1st, that would mean they would have to do sort of an enormous amount of coding for a system that's about to be taken completely offline. And so want to figure out some middle ground with getting this done in time to have the revenue that we need, but also it's, there's no reason to do all of those coding on all those tiny fees if it's just for a couple months worth of fees. And so I'm going to figure that out in the next day. And so we might have different effective dates when we look at this on Thursday. If anyone wants to join that really fun conversation, you're welcome to it.
And I just wanted to point out that the new position section that was struck out of the underlying bill is added here in section 77.
77?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Becky. Really, really appreciate it. Oh, Jim, yeah.
Yeah, short version on why it's moved from one section to another. Got the answer.
It was in the underlying bill to make sure that I'll let the drafter of that.
We are leaving open the door for the possibility that House Appropriations is going to choose to put that language in the big bill, and this way it's easier to take it out without having to renumber 40 some odd sections worth of fees.
Brilliant.
Logic prevails. Thank you very much.
Love that. Thanks. Okay. Yeah.
I have a question. Do we need this money to make the bill balance?
The money for
For the new fees, the increases in the fees. Do we need that increase? That money has to be going somewhere. So I'm wondering if we need that money to make the bill balance, and if not, what are we using it for?
I think that's a question for Chris.
Yeah, so the fee revenue are going for the specific service that is being provided. It's not going to the underlying T-bill, but.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Christopher, Joint Fiscal. Real quick, to answer Representative Brannigan's question, the FY24 T-bill that you all just saw does not rest on additional revenue to balance in FY24. The intent would be if fees are increased in 24, the revenues that would be generated would fall to the bottom line of the T fund and be available for appropriation to help bridge that $68 million funding gap in FY25 and FY26.
What bridges that gap now?
The governor proposed using one-time general fund surplus dollars reserved to bridge that gap. But obviously that is one way to bridge the gap for 2 years, but it doesn't deal with the underlying structural issue of current law revenues not keeping up with the demands within the T fund.
And it's because of gasoline?
It is because of declining motor fuel consumption over time and a relatively flat tax base, and the fact that non-tax revenues have not been adjusted in 7 years, and we saw inflation is now 19.8% over that time period. So we've just had a situation where the revenues are like this, and the available federal funds we need to draw down are increasing.
I understand. Thank you.
So what you're saying, Chris, is that, for example, when the DMV issues a license, they have fixed costs for doing that. Their fixed costs have changed since 2016, and they are not keeping pace with what it takes for them to do that work.
Yeah, and I would say, remember a month ago when we were first talking about this, it's not even just DMV's own costs, though, of course.
Just using that as an example.
It's the whole transportation system in general. So DMV brings in far more in fee revenue than it actually costs to operate DMV, because they act as like the fiscal agent that collects more revenue to the T fund. So when you renew your license, you're not just paying for the person behind the window at DMV printing you that card. You're making a contribution to the T fund to sort of maintain and operate and regulate the entire transportation network that you as a licensed driver operate on. So it's not just within their administrative silo, it's the entire transportation network overall.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thank you, everyone. very much. Thank you, Becky, for running back and forth hither and yon. And we are going to pivot again. And pick this conversation back up on Thursday. Maybe at the end of the day, I'll remember that's Thursday. We're gonna pick this conversation back up on. Thank you. Okay. I saw Julia here and now I don't see her. She's just,
It was crowded.
okay, cool, thank you.
Should be right out here.
Okay. Field team commence. Yeah, I'm in the middle of texting you back.
Are we all good or maybe
No.
not? Yeah, can't just.
Yeah,
you
no.
gotta
I'll
send
do, yes. Let us, as we do, Brad. Hi. Are we? Welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Has it really just been a week?
It's really been, 3 weeks, I think so.
Okay, good. That feels. Okay.
Yeah, I was last in before town meeting day.
Oh, you have so much news to share with us.
Yeah. Well, I'll make it up as I go.
Thanks, that's very reassuring.
But-
All of Vermont property taxes.
Okay, so am I going to be sharing my screen?
That'd be great.
Okay. So are we on?
You have to log into stuff to do that.
I'm going to,
Cool.
so Brad James, Agency of Education. There's Sorge's email. And I am now logging in slowly. Installing updates. Zoom updated. Might take us a minute. Sorry.
Are there cookies?
Not this time. It's a good question though.
Said bring snacks. Can we offer you some cake?
No, I'm all set, thank you, but that's,
You could,
one always has to check.
it's very good.
That was Brannigan's specialty, right?
Oh, is it representative? Yeah.
Anyway, the baker's over there, you know.
I like bacon.
Little contest.
Well, keep it up. But anyway, sorry for the interruption.
No, it's okay. I think Brad, so are you logged in and able to share?
I'm still connecting at the moment.
Okay, cool.
I think we'll be there.
There we go.
There we go. Is this behind me yet? No, join with computer audio. Let me turn it back on. Oh no, I want my audio on. Okay. Live streamed. Okay, and now I want to share my screen. Which one do I want? Which one? This one? This one? This one? We're waiting then. It's coming? Okay, this is not the page you want to see.
Oh my.
Oh, it's lovely.
Nice color.
Come on. Okay, here's where we are.
Nope.
It's coming? Okay, this is not the page. Oh, Come on.
Uh-oh.
Or something.
My internet connection is unstable, it's telling me.
My internet connection is unstable, it's telling me.
I might have a tab open that has the.
Touch his computer.
Okay.
Is it okay now? It's not.
Not yet.
We're still in echo mode.
I've opened, let's try to open.
Brad, would you like Saoirse to touch your computer?
Source took over.
We sing around
There you go.
ourselves.
Did that work?
I think it did. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I had my sound turned off, but it was that one up there. Usually Source mutes me. So, and there-
And then from here, you're.
there's a good reason for that, apparently. So now we're back, and here we are. Basically, I heard from all but 3 school districts and 2 unorganized towns in Gorst. So I got information from everyone. And so that's what we're looking at here with this last number. This, again, it's the red number here where it says initial education spend. It's $1.702 billion, so $1,702 million. That includes 3 districts that I did not hear from. 2 of them I inflated by 8% because that's roughly what we've been talking about, because I didn't know it's Essex North, they're a school district with Canaan and Northeast Kingdom Choice Unified School District, that they do not have a business manager at the moment. So I did not want to pressure them into doing something that they're having trouble doing. So I just inflated their numbers. And then the other one that I did not hear from was Lincoln, which is going to be a new school district starting this July 1. And I did find that I had information from when they were talking to the state board back in November as a budget. So it may not be exact the same, but it'll be fairly close. So the numbers here are fairly good. I heard from the other 3 that I had not heard from. But basically, we're coming in just under 8% increase based on those 3 caveats right there. We're coming at 7.97%, whereas before on the December 1 letter, we're at 8.52%. So everybody's a little bit lower, which is good. I forgot to check to see what a savings that was in terms of the education fund.
Right. The districts that didn't pass their budget, you're estimating them at 8%.
I left them in. That's a good question. I was going to come to that, but that's an excellent question. I left them in as they were. The 2 that did not pass were Alburg and Barry Unified Union School District. And so Alburg will go down slightly because they thought the budget was too high. Barry Unified Union School District will go up. How much, I don't know. I was talking to the business manager today, trying to get some sense of where they think it's going to go up. And she was thinking that it might go up as much as 6%. She's thinking it's probably more in the 5% range from where it stands right now. So if we use the 6% down at the bottom of this sheet, it works, there we go. Down here where it says number 2, if you use the 6%, it goes up about an additional $2.3 million. That'll probably put us just over 8% in total for the state. But that one budget will go up, and it will be in the range of $1 million to a little over $2 million is my best guess from what I've been talking to with the business manager there. So those are not included in the numbers that you're seeing up in the yellow section, that 7.97, because I just found that out this morning. Well, found this out too. But anyway, just for Julia's sake too, to know what's going to happen from that field, it will probably go up. I'm not sure when they're thinking about trying to get a budget back out. Lisa Peralt, who is the business manager there, said that they were coming in and talking about it this week with the 6.5% increase. See where they go. But I don't know when they're thinking about another vote at this point. And that's really down to the very bottom are the ones that I inflated. Canaan and Northeast Kingdom Choice, and then Lincoln. I kind of had an estimate. And the Buell's, Gore, and Ferdinand, the Gore and the unorganized town that I put in there, just as rough numbers. They never come with a budget until usually late August, early September, when they have their annual meeting, and it's usually in this range. So I just put their numbers in, but they usually have them instead of inflating them. That's kind of where we stand in terms of what I think is going to happen.
Okay.
Do you have any more conversation with folks about what will happen next year?
Thank you. I knew there was something I was going to tell you guys, and that's it. I met with business managers 2 Fridays ago, at their monthly meeting. And I asked the question, they knew I was gonna ask. And most of them said they're not sure what they're doing yet. It's in the back of their mind. They're aware of the fact that they have the numbers coming up. But they are not certain as to what they're going to do quite yet. I do have, and it's one of the files I just closed, but I can reopen it. I've been telling you that I was going to get to the, not finding it quickly, that I was going to get to the waiting for FY24 to take the Act 127 weights and apply them to FY24. I've done that for everything but the enrollments. I have not been able to get the enrollments from our data people that are working on it now. And we should have those since it is this one right here. Just to show you where we are. This is basically, this is, I know you probably can't read this without me.
It's not,
We're not.
there.
No, it's not, that's because it is another,
We're just looking at your file system.
that's not very
It's fun.
exciting. See if I have to remember how to unshare. Well, since I can't remember, and I can't get this to work, here, there we go. Oh. I should use Zoom more often, apparently. We use Teams more than anything else at this point. Essentially what I have done is I'll go back to where I was. And no, I won't even look. Sorry, ignore that. Essentially, what I've done is I have run the numbers for FY24 through Act 127. Again, as I said, without the enrollment numbers, which people are realizing they need to get, and they're working on them now. They've had some issues. And I will be sending those out to everybody once I get that last piece of information to give them the information. And then that will help them, because what I'll do is I'll say, here's where you are now under Act 60, or not Act 60, pardon me, under current law. That's the machine. Under current law. And I'll give them the weighted count, which nothing, but I'll give them the equalized pupil count, which they already know. But I'll give them the weighted count under Act 127 also, and I'll also go that next step and say, if we were to do an equalized pupil count, here's what your equalized pupil count is. So they can really kind of compare apples to apples a little bit. There are some good size swings. I haven't looked closely at it yet, but there's some good size swings in what people will be seeing in their pupil counts. It's, because we are switching from equalized pupils to a larger denominator, the long-term weighted ADM, then the spending per pupil is going to come down, which means that the yield will change accordingly. So the people's tax rate will stay the same. You just made that one single change. And so it will help people see where they're going to be. They'll at least have 2 years worth of data then at that point. See, this is kind of where we think we're going to be. My guess is the 2 years are probably fairly similar. There aren't big jumps between the 2 years. So they'll have an idea of this is kind of where we're going to be in FY25 when it comes into play.
Okay.
So they're thinking about it. They haven't acted on it yet. Is really the long story short.
Thanks. Any other questions from Brad? Thank you.
Very welcome. Thank you, Sorcha.
Oh, Carol, yeah.
I did want to know where the forms for free lunch or reduced lunch or some kind of forms.
Universal.
We waited.
Universal.
Universal.
Income declaration.
Yeah, income.
Yeah.
That is. Declaration. So we waited for a year for the.
I was speaking with Rosie Kruger, a year ago, last week. She was in, I was talking to her and we were just chatting, but I did ask about that. It said it's not her group that's working on it. There are other people in the data team that are working on it, but it said it's making progress. I can pin her down a little bit more and find out more information about exactly where they stand with that. I don't know where it is, but it does need to be out there fairly soon, I would think.
And we can have someone from AOE in to ask about that again. I think Ted came in and gave us an update at some point. I have no sense of time anymore. Ted came in and gave us an update about it, and we could use it. We were told it was happening imminently, and that was a little while ago, so we can go back in.
Okay, it didn't sound imminent from what Rosie said, so I'll touch base with her again.
Okay, thanks.
Help you guys.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Am I unhooked? Sort of. I'm what's known as a.
I think you need to, I think you need to exit the meeting as if we were in a meeting together, but she can also just kick you out.
Good at that. Yeah. You're welcome. Hopefully that was entertaining.
It always is, and informative.
Definitely.
It is both informative and entertaining, thank you. So before Julia comes and talks us through, actually, Julia, will you come and talk us through a new Ed Fund Outlook? And there's an extra line in the Ed Fund Outlook that Julia is going to show us, which is, as folks might have heard, there's been a bit of inflation this year. And as part of that bit of inflation this year, the teachers' pensions came up against sort of a statutory law that was built in a number of years ago. And Chris can give us more details when we get to it. But essentially, because of that statutory wall, their COLA did not quite match what was sort of expected in the case of inflation. And so in other committees, there's movement, whether in the budget or somewhere else, to give a one-time payment to teachers in order to make them whole, while sort of considering for the future when we have better numbers from all of the pension folks about sort of what the future of the fund looks like, to see what we can do long-term to fix that statutory language. And so Julia has built that number into the Outlook, but Chris is here if we have questions about all the pension things. And so that's why I was pausing for like some choreography, mental check-ins with myself. Scott, did you just have your hand?
I'm just going to make the point, I think this is only about teachers that are retired. Right?
Yes.
It's not active teachers, it's just retired.
Yes, thank you. It's just retired teachers. So would folks prefer to hear from Chris first before Julia dives into the numbers? The other numbers, or is that just stick with Julia? Okay. Julia, why don't you just take us through the regular Ed Fund Outlook so we can have our Brad and Julia show as we do. Thank you.
Sure. So for the record, I'm Julia Richter with the Joint Fiscal Office. Sharing my screen now. This is also under my name on the committee page. Is that a good size for folks?
A lovely size.
Okay, great.
A little bigger?
You could have it in front of me right now.
Okay, cool. Okay.
All right. So this should all look pretty familiar to the committee. Just to remind you what we're looking at here, we've got column A, that's FY 2023 projected. That's the same that we've been looking at every time that I'm coming in to talk to you.
I'm not sure where this is.
Under Julia's
Sorry.
name.
Oh, there it is. All right. I only have this long sheet.
It's the same one.
Oh, it is the same one. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just zoomed in, so we're just looking at the summary section, but when I scroll down, you'll see the whole Ed Fund Outlook.
Look, definitely.
So we've got column A here, that's FY 2023, and then I've been asked to model two different scenarios, which are captured in columns B and C. The real difference between the two scenarios is the yields and rates that we're using, as well as how much is going into the reserve. The other assumptions within the model are the same. So before walking through those differences, just to remind you what we're looking at, this has been updated with the numbers that Brad just walked through, so the post-town meeting voted budgets. We've also got updated grand list information from the tax department, so all of that has been included into the yield model, which is why some of the things might look a little bit different than what we've been looking at throughout the session so far. You do see that the ed spending growth is no longer 8.5%, but now overall about 8%. So going to,
can you explain, or maybe Scott, if you want to explain just sort of how column B was constructed, like how we came to that tax reserve of 22 million?
Yes. Where that came from was out of an attempt to keep the non-homestead property tax rate, line C, line D, and line E at very close to what they were projected to be in the December 1 tax letter.
Yeah.
Which is what the districts use for their budgeting.
Oh, okay.
purposes. Yeah.
And then sort of figure out the tax stabilization reserve from there.
From there, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was the modeling request. The reason that they're not perfectly aligned with the December 1st letter is because there were the updates to the grand list data. You'll recall that when solving the yield model, unless asked to do otherwise, we solve it so that the average bill change across all three classes is the same. So because we had those changes in the grand list data, that average bill change was no longer proportional across all three classes. So essentially I've solved the yield model in such a way to try to stay as close to the December 1st yields and rates, while also having the average proportional bill change the same across all three classes, which is that increase of 3.84%. So those assumptions baked in here, as well as carrying the 29 million for universal meals, as well as the one-time COLA payment that the chair spoke about of 2.8 million. We've put 22 million into the tax rate offset reserve. And you see that there's 1.1 unreserved, unallocated on the bottom line. In theory, all of those funds could be put into the tax rate offset reserve, but when solving for the yields model, it is difficult to get that bottom line number to be 0.000. So that's why you're seeing a little bit of wiggle room around there at the bottom. So that's the construct for column B. I'll pause if there's any questions about that construct. Okay, and then column C, very similar. We still are carrying the cost for universal school meals as well as the one-time COLA payment. But here, as the chair mentioned, we put it was modeled to put 50 million into the tax rate offset reserve and then solve back to see what the yields and rates would need to be to fill all of those reserves and account for the expenses. So there we see in our summary lines that would be a average bill percentage change across all three classes of 5.86%.
And so in that case, sort of, I basically asked you to do the 50 million reserve and then you sort of solved backwards from there for the rates rather than solving for the rates and then setting up the reserve.
Exactly.
Personally, I feel like these are both really viable proposals and I see a really good reason for each of them. I maintain like significant concerns about next year and what will sort of happen with so much likely a little bit less unexpected revenue, likely continued increases in education spending. We are able in all three of the, in both of these scenarios to still keep increases in tax rates well below the actual percentage change in education spending, which is great. And I think it's really important that we don't hold tax rates entirely harmless from increases in spending, because that's sort of the bargain of our entire fairly wild education fund system, that there is that sort of essential connection that for communities to experience. So just curious about people's thoughts on pros versus cons. I'm not walking into this conversation with an agenda towards one column or the other. I think they're both really good choices. Yeah.
I prefer column B for two reasons. One is
Which one? I'm sorry.
column B.
Okay.
One is we're giving, really essentially giving the taxpayers the rates we told them we were going to get that we wanted, or we were projecting in December. And the other reason I like it is because, this year we had a $65 million head start. And that's not sustainable. Typically we have like about a $20 million head start. We'll get some reversions and stuff like that. And so I think that, so we don't end up in this big pile up at the end. I think we need to start working that 65 down to what is more sustainable. And I think if we leave it at about 22, we'll get some reversions. We always get about 15 to 20 million dollars that shows up that, wasn't projected, and then we'll end up somewhere in the 35 to 40, halfway between 65 and 20. And then, hopefully 2 years from now, we kind of come in for a soft landing. So that's why I prefer the column B.
Just to check that answer, okay. You're concerned that if we have a reserve at 50 million, it's too large of a number that we can continue to get too used to.
Yeah, we can't sustain that.
We can't sustain
We can't sustain that. No.
Anyone else? We're making a decision and voting this bill out at the end of the week. Okay. Keep on thinking about it, and we will have something drafted by Abby, and voted on. I'm tending towards B myself, but if anyone has big objections, speak. And we'll talk about it on Friday. Julia. Okay, we're gonna stay in our seats for just a moment while we see if we can move aquatic nuisances to this moment in time and away from wherever aquatic nuisances we're sitting Thursday. So we can make space for whatever is gonna happen.